Hello, in this video we're going to look at how we've added motion matching into our existing project. So this is a feature which came out with Unreal Engine 5.4. So it's a really cool new feature which really helps us integrate our animations into our project. So one of the prerequisites is that we need to upgrade our project to 5.4. And as usual, this blog post will cover all the steps that you need to do in order to sort of replicate this on your project as well, right? So it goes through how to enable all of the relevant plugins. It will go through which animations I've used. So in this case, I've used the Lyra starter game animations because they're quite good. And it goes through basically integrating all of this step by step. So do check that out because that will cover all of the details. And in this video, we're going to go through sort of the overview, how it all sort of fits together. So let's get started with a quick demo. All right, so let's click play here. So you can see it's now working with my existing project. So I've essentially just changed the animation blueprint for my characters. So the character meshes and things like that, I've made them work with the ones that I've had before. So these are from Enhance Studios. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that the Enhance Studios animation packs weren't actually compatible with motion matching. So, you know, before you purchase your animation packs, it's worth double checking. So specifically with the Enhance Studios ones, they were missing the root motion component. So basically, you didn't have the movement as part of the animations, so you need that for it to be compatible with motion matching. So anyway, I've took the Lyra starter project animations and I've embedded them onto this character. So let's see what they look like. So you can see that I'm able to now run around. It also has walk as well. It obviously has the idle, and also I've put the jump animations in as well. So everything else is working as before, but now, like I say, it's got a bit of different life to it, I suppose, with these new animations. So that's it for the quick demo. So let's have a look at the things we needed to do in order to get this working. Okay, so let's use the blog post as the reference point. So we'll go through the steps that we see on there. And yeah, the first thing that you'll need to do is just make sure that the motion trajectory plugin is enabled. So this is literally the motion matching. So this becomes available with 5.4. So if you're on a version before that, you'll have to upgrade. We'll also be using another plugin. I think it's called Chooser. So go ahead and enable that while you're here. So as a reference point, if you're on an existing project which requires an upgrade, you can right click your project and then switch Unreal Engine version and select 5.4 after installing it through the marketplace. Now, there might be some issues with plugins, you know, so you might need to resolve some compatibility issues. But yeah, you'll need to switch your Unreal Engine version in order for these to be visible. Okay, so the next step is really quite simple, to be honest. So it's about preparing your character class. So in my case, I'm using this asset from Enhance Studio. So this is for my player character. So it's a modular character, so it doesn't have to be just a static mesh. It can be whatever you want it to be, really. Thankfully, this asset is so these characters from Enhance Studios, their skeletons are compatible with the Unreal Engine skeleton, so I'm not going to have too many issues with transferring those animations when I'm working on the retargeting, essentially. So yep, prepare your character class that you're going to be using, and we can go on to the next step, which is getting the animations from the Lyra project. Okay, so the Lyra project can be found in the Epic Store, so just search for it in your marketplace, and there it is over here. So it's a free asset that's provided from Unreal Engine, so you're able to create the project, and once you've created it, you'll be able to start it, and there it is in the background, right? So this is the Lyra starter project. From here, what I'm going to do is find the animations folder, and let me just find where one of these are. So I want specifically the unarmed ones, right? So these are the animations that I want to go ahead and bring over to my project. So in order to do that, I can just select all of them, and I'm just going to type migrate. So you'll be able to find it over here. it will select all of the things that it thinks it needs in order to successfully migrate this over. This can sometimes have some issues, but I just went ahead and click OK there, and then find your project path, right? So in my case, it's already selected to my current project, so OpenMMO content, and it has to be inside this content directory. Then simply click select folder, and is going to go ahead and bring all of these relevant assets to your project. So again, you'll be able to find them now inside here. So let's have a look. Okay, so I found them over here. So under characters, heroes, mannequin, animations, locomotion, and unarmed. So the folder structure should be the same as it was in Lyra. So you bring them over, and you can see it even brought over the skeleton mesh for the mannequin, which to be honest, we don't want to actually use, right? So we'll go through how we change that in a moment. Okay, so you can see the post covers all of the steps you need to migrate them over, and once you've got the migration done, we'll be retargeting the animations. So in order to retarget them, we'll just right-click one of them, click retarget, and here we'll select the asset that we need to target. So if you're not 100% sure which one, you can open up one of your existing animation blueprints if you have it. There's a few places to get to the skeleton for your skeletal mesh, but this is just one of them, and you can just confirm what it says here. So for example, I'll be looking for human male full body. So let's type that hue full body. So there it is. So you can see the retarget is available. What I'm going to do is just click all of them and click export, and then you can define how to export it. So where it goes and what the prefix suffix is for those. So that's how you can go ahead and retarget the animations from the Lyra project into your own skeletal mesh. And like I say, for me, the retargeter, I can use it on auto-generate because they are compatible. So you might have some issues if your skeleton is a bit different to the Unreal Engine default, right? So there can be some issues here. So hopefully you have something compatible and there's not going to be these issues. Okay, so let's keep going. So this just goes through all of the retargeting steps. So now we got to the point where we can use the motion matching to actually compile all of these animations together. Okay, so what I've actually done is I've separated them out a little bit. So I've organized them into their own folders. So for example, under the default, which will be unarmed for me, I've got several folders for the different states. So for example, it would be idle, jog, jump, and walk. So for example, inside the idle, I have all of the animations for idle, jog, animations for jog, etc. Right? So I've basically just organized this, so this will become a bit easier for me to use in the near future, and we can go ahead and start preparing the motion matching. So we do this, I'm going to do this in a separate folder, so these are the things that we're going to be creating shortly. Okay, so the first thing that we'll want to do is create the pose search schema. So the way to do that is under animation, you want to find motion matching and pose search schema. So here you want to add the skeleton. So in order to find the skeleton, again, you can do that through something like this animation blueprint, where, for example, this skeleton points to scale hue M, right? So this is the skeletal mesh that was used, and this is the skeleton. So it might be useful for you. So one of the future steps is going to be adding 2 new channels. So while we're here, we might as well just add them because they will be required for some of the animations. So the first thing that we'll need is the position channel, and you can connect it to the pelvis bone. So I would just suggest using the root bone. And next we're going to be adding the velocity channel, and again just connect it to the pelvis bone. Okay, so we can go ahead and save that, and next we're going to be creating the pose search database. So one of these. Okay, so again, you can connect it to the schema that you've just created. So you should just have one, and I'll just connect it there. And let's have a look at what's inside. Okay, so before we jump into the post search database, we should actually prepare the animations. So some of these animations will require some properties to be changed. So go ahead and find all of the animation sequences that we'll be using. You can right click and type edit in property matrix. So that's what we'll want to do. And specifically with all of these selected, what you want to do is enable the root motion and force root lock. So again, this is where some of the enhance assets weren't compatible. So you could actually try and enable it, but it didn't actually do anything. So, but you will want to enable these two properties before you continue. And then we can go ahead and add them to here. So once you've opened up your new post search database, so what you'll want to do is find the animations and simply drag them in. So for the default ones, we'll add the idle, jog, and walk. So it should be quite straightforward and quick to add them, especially if you've organized them in this way. So you can see now this is fully prepared, and the animations have all of the properties configured as we require. So this is now ready, so that's what's inside here. It is worth mentioning that inside here, if you were to select the different animations, so for example jog, or just select all of them, you can see that the characters are moving around inside this preview. That's actually how motion matching works. It's able to determine which animation to use based on the trajectory of your character. So if your root motion wasn't working, you will just find that character to be simply staying still. And that's not good. So because I can see all of them are moving around, then this is good to use essentially. Okay. Okay, so let's see what's next. So there it is, adding to the database. So now we want to open up our character blueprint and add the trajectory component. So inside the player character, just click add and then search for trajectory and just add that in. So that's pretty simple. And next what we want to do is go into our animations blueprint. So now that we've added the component, we want to reference it inside our animations blueprint. And this is done inside the event graph. And more specifically, I'm going to do it on the begin play, right? So when I begin play, I'm going to grab my pawn owner. So I cast it to the player character base. And from the player character base, I'm going to get the character trajectory and promote that to a variable. So this will be required for motion matching. So now that we've got this component available inside the anim graph, I'm going to be able to configure some of these main motion matching pieces. So here's the motion matching. So to find it, you can just search motion matching, and it's this one under post search. So by default, you can configure the default database to use. So for example, just simply select that and attach it to the pose history component. Okay, and you can link it in, right? So the trajectory, this is the variable that we've just connected. So you'll be able to just evaluate it as the character trajectory and link it in like that. And then once that's done, you can basically, well, you can connect it to the output pose. But what I do is I cache it and then I add the layered blend pose. So if you remember, I require this for some of the combat animations, so when I swing my weapon and things like that. But you could simply connect that to the result as well. So that's how we can do the basic one. And when we're going to be extending this, so we're going to be extending it with a chooser plugin, we'll be able to dynamically choose the database that we use based on some properties. So let's look at that shortly. Right, so we can see that in the blog post, as we've connected this up, we're able to effectively connect this post search directly to the output pose. When I click play, I did have some issues with this function add effect notify and set params. So this is something that was imported through the Lyra project. It looks like the import had some issues, so I suspect it might be the same for you. I've simply disconnected it in this case, as I'm just interested in the animations at this point, but I'll potentially revisit that in the future. But when I click play, I'm actually able to run around already, right? So it'll have the idle, walk, and run animations, but we're still going to be missing the run animation. So that's the next thing that we're going to be looking at, and we'll be achieving it using the chooser plugin, which is also available, right? So if you haven't already enabled it, go ahead and enable it now, and create yourself the jump animations motion match. So this is the pose search database, and just add the animations to that. And so this is where I'll continue and start creating the chooser table with you. So if I go back here, we'll go ahead and create the chooser table. Okay, so in order to create a chooser table, simply right-click, just type chooser and give it a sensible name, and go inside. And the first thing that we'll do is configure the inputs and the outputs, right? So for the inputs, we want to effectively link it to our animation blueprint. This will give it native access to any parameters inside the animation blueprint, so that's what we want. So I'll connect it to the class. And the class is going to be, so it's going to be this animation there, so hue anim BP. So it's whatever animation blueprint you're going to be using for your character. And for the output, so it's going to be so it's going to be the pose search database. So I'm just going to type that. Is that right? Yeah, so pose search database. Okay, there it is. And so basically we want to select which database to use depending on some of the variables that we have inside the animation blueprint, right? So that's kind of what it means. So what we want to do is add 2 new assets. So it automatically filters for the databases that we have, the pose search databases. So the first one is going to be the default, and the next one is going to be the jump one. And for the column, this is how we determine which database to use depending on these variables, right? So for example, here I'm able to bind the Boolean, and as you can see, it has native access to these parameters. So, so I'm going to bind it to is in air. So as you may have guessed, for the default one, we want is in air to be false, and for the jump, we want that to be true. And just for context, the way we get this is in air parameter is inside the animation blueprint. So inside the event graph, you can see there's going to be the update animation event. And essentially we get the player character, we get the movement component, and from that we get is falling, and that's simply promoted to the variable over here. And as we discussed earlier, this table now has native access to the animation blueprint for the input. So that's how we're able to make this binding. So this part is now ready, and we can start integrating it. So let's just take a quick look into the jump pose search database. So it's quite simple, but basically I grabbed all of the assets from my jump and I just dragged them in here. And that's basically the jump pose search database complete. Okay, so now we can go back to the animation graph. So inside the anim graph, and what we want to do is remove this static database to a dynamic one, right? So essentially we want to use the chooser table to select which database to use. So in order to do that, we'll change this to a dynamic value. So we don't want to expose that as a pin. And what we'll do is we'll add a binding on update. So inside here, what we can do is use the chooser table. Okay, so what do we actually want to do on the update? So we want to dynamically select the database and connect it to motion matching. So first of all, this node is the motion matching node. And the reason why is because it literally came from motion matching. So what we want to do is set database to search. So this is what we've just said. We need to select which post search database to use in order to select the correct animations. So what database do we choose? Well, it comes from the chooser table. So let's search for evaluate chooser. And here we want to select the chooser that we've just created, so the new chooser table. So let's just link that up and connect the results to the database. So what about the input? So the input here is the human male and MVP. So it's literally this file, and that's how we get the inputs, right? So for example, the is in air is inherently passed through this animation blueprint, so it just references itself. It chooses the database to use based on those inputs, and we update the database accordingly. So here I'll just select interrupt on database change, because if we've changed the database, then we want it to change the animations, right? So there we go. That's how we configure on update. So now we can just connect things together. Okay, so what I'll actually do is I'll go back here and I'll use the new component that we've just created. So I'll connect that to the base pose. So this should be using the new chooser table, but to be fair, it connects to the old pose search databases. But it's just to, I suppose, quickly demo that things are working as expected. So as you can see, my character is still able to run around, jump and do all of these fancy things. So we've now effectively successfully brought in motion matching into our project. So we've introduced two new motion matching databases. So one for our default movement, so unarmed movement, another one for jump. So for example, when I'm going to be introducing new categories, what I'm going to do is create new post search databases. So for example, when I'm wielding two-handed weapons, my animations may be different. If I'm in stealth mode or crouching, again, the animations are different. And I'm going to be leveraging the chooser table and link it to the parameters inside my animation blueprint to choose the correct post search database to use. So that's how we integrate all of those components together. So anyway, that's it for this post. Hope that's useful, and best of luck with your project. So see you next time. Bye bye.